Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be diving into something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The world of 5.4.
5-4.
It's a new language model
Yeah.
from Microsoft Research.
Right.
And, it's making some serious waves even though it's relatively small compared to a lot of the other models out there.
Right.
So we're going to be looking at the technical report that details
Yeah.
its development.
Mm-hmm.
What makes this deep dive so fascinating, I think, is that 5.4 is kind of challenging this idea that bigger is always better when it comes to these models.
Yeah.
We're going to find out how it's able to get these incredible results, sometimes even surpassing models.
Right.
Many times its size.
Yeah. It's been going head to head with like the big leagues.
Yeah.
And even beating some of the massive frontier models,
Yeah.
most advanced AIs out there.
Right. 5.4's secret weapon seems to be its focus on data quality over quantity.
Totally.
Instead of just throwing more data at the problem, the researchers really honed in on carefully crafting the data they used for training. It's like, having a massive library full of just random books
Right.
versus a very carefully curated collection of the
Yeah.
most important texts.
Exactly.
This data-centric approach is based on three main principles.
Okay.
They use synthetic data for both pre-training and mid-training. The model, carefully curating and filtering high-quality organic data,
Right.
and then they develop some really innovative post-training techniques.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this a bit.
Okay.
What exactly is synthetic data?
Yeah.
And why is it so crucial for 5.4?
Well, synthetic data is basically just artificial data that's specifically created to
Okay.
train AI models.
Okay.
And one of the big advantages here is that it allows for structured and gradual learning.
Okay.
You can kind of think of it as like the difference between learning from a really well-organized textbook
Yeah.
versus trying to decipher like a random jumble of information.
Right. Like most large language models are trained on just this massive amount of real-world data, like web pages, books, code repositories.
Yeah.
But this data is often really messy and unstructured,
Yeah.
making it difficult for the model to learn in like a very systematic way.
Right.
Synthetic data, on the other hand, is designed to be clear and consistent,
Yeah.
and it provides a much smoother learning path for the model.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. Like if you want someone to learn to write a formal essay,
Right.
you wouldn't just have them read a bunch of random internet comments.
Yeah.
You'd want them to study examples of like well-structured writing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And another benefit of using synthetic data
Yeah.
is that it can be tailored to align with how we actually want
Right.
large language models to like use information.
Okay.
It's more in line with the kinds of outputs we expect from them, making it easier for the model to adapt to different tasks.
So it's not just about teaching the model what to know. It's about teaching it how to think.
Precisely.
Now think about how humans learn math.
Yeah.
We don't just jump to the answer, right?
Right.
We break the problem down
Mm-hmm.
into these logical steps.
Yeah.
But a lot of the math data out there, like solutions written by humans,
Mm-hmm.
often skip those intermediate steps.
Right.
And that makes it hard for an AI to actually learn that reasoning process
Yeah.
with synthetic data.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can create math problems and solutions that are presented in like this really clear step-by-step format.
Right.
And that makes it much easier for the model to grasp the underlying logic.
Totally.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
But how did they actually generate this synthetic data for 5.4? Like, what was their recipe?
Well, one of the key ingredients was something called seed curation,
Okay.
where they started with high-quality seeds of information from various sources, so things
Good.
like web pages, code repositories, even question data sets. And these seeds provided the foundation for that complex and accurate synthetic data.
So they're like the starter culture
Yeah,
for delicious sourdough bread.
that's a great analogy.
Once they had these high-quality seeds,
Yeah.
they used various techniques to transform them into a wide range of exercises, discussions, and reasoning tasks.
Right.
One technique that really stood out to me
Right.
was self-revision. It's almost like 5.4 was grading its own homework.
Yeah.
It would critique and improve its own output,
Right.
which helped refine the synthetic data even further.
Yeah, so they basically built like a feedback loop
Yeah.
into that data generation process,
Right.
allowing the model to learn from its own mistakes.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah.
They also used something called instruction reversal, where they took existing code and had 5.4 figure out what the original instructions must have been.
Right.
This helped the model really understand the intent behind the code and how to follow instructions more effectively. Right, like working backwards from the solution to
Yeah.
understand the problem.
Exactly. And they also went to great lengths to make sure their synthetic data was accurate,
Yeah.
especially when it came to code and scientific information.
Right.
They actually had 5.4 execute the code, solve scientific problems,
Right.
ensuring that the data that it was learning from was solid.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up generating like a massive 400 billion synthetic data tokens.
Wow.
That's a lot of data, even for a language model.
It really shows their commitment to
Yeah.
this synthetic approach.
Now, they didn't just stop there.
Uh-huh.
To put 5.4 to the test. In the real world,
Mhm.
they had it take the November 2024 AMC math competitions.
Oh, wow.
You know, those are the highly competitive exams that even top high school students struggle with.
Right, that's a pretty high bar for an AI.
Pretty high bar.
Yeah.
And guess what?
What?
5.4 actually did incredibly well.
Really?
It not only outperformed other models of similar size, but it also managed to beat out.
Much larger frontier models.
So it's not just keeping up with the big guys.
Yeah.
It's surpassing them in some cases.
Yeah, that's impressive.
It really is.
And this wasn't just a fluke. 5.4 averaged a score of 89.8 out of 150 on the AMC.
Wow, that's exceeding expectations.
Yeah, far exceeding expectations.
Yeah,
It suggests that 5.4 isn't just memorizing patterns.
right.
It's actually developing these genuine problem-solving skills,
Mm-hmm.
which is a huge leap forward.
Yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Are you telling me this relatively small language model could be tutoring high school students in math?
Well, maybe not tutoring just yet,
Okay.
but it's definitely a sign that they're onto something special with this data-centric approach.
Yeah.
But they didn't just rely on the AMC to evaluate 5.4's abilities.
Okay.
They also created their own internal benchmark called PhiBench.
Hold on. Why did they need a whole new benchmark? Aren't there already tons of those for AI?
There are,
Yeah.
but they realize that the standard benchmarks have some limitations. For one, they can be vulnerable to something called data contamination,
Okay.
where the questions used to evaluate the model might have actually been part of the data that it was trained on.
So it's like the AI accidentally got a sneak peek
Yeah,
at the exam questions beforehand?
exactly.
Not really a fair test.
Right.
And they also wanted to create a benchmark that tested a wider range of skills,
Yeah.
pushing the model beyond just simple question answering.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't just looking for a model that could ace a multiple choice test.
Right.
They wanted something that could actually think critically and solve complex problems.
Absolutely.
And PhiBench was designed to do exactly that.
Yeah.
It includes a diverse set of tasks and challenges that really put 5.4 through its paces and help the researchers to see what it was truly capable of.
So PhiBench wasn't just like an evaluation tool. It was
Yeah.
a crucial part
Yeah.
of the development process.
Right. It helped them fine-tune the data mixtures, refine the training techniques,
Yeah.
and ultimately shape 5.4 into this impressive model it is today.
That's a great way to put it.
It was a key ingredient in their data-centric approach.
Yeah.
Now, remember how we talked about 5.4 outperforming
Yeah.
much larger models on some of those standard benchmarks,
Yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing.
beating out the Goliaths of the AI world?
Right.
Well, one of those benchmarks was called GPQA,
Okay.
and it focuses on graduate-level STEM questions.
Graduate level.
Graduate level. That's some serious brain power.
That is.
And on this challenging benchmark,
Yeah.
5.4 actually outscored its own teacher model, GPT-4.
Wow. The student surpassing the teacher.
Yeah,
That's got to be a good sign.
that's got to be a sign they're doing something right.
Yeah.
And this was one of the key findings that really convinced the researchers that their approach was onto something.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just about size.
Right.
It was about the way they were training the model,
Yeah.
the quality of the data that they were feeding it. And it wasn't just GPQA. 5.4 also excelled at coding tasks,
Okay.
scoring higher than any other publicly available model on benchmarks like Human Evil and Human Evil Plus.
This little model that could, a
Yeah.
real underdog story.
But even with all these successes, there's one benchmark
Okay.
where 5.4 actually faltered a bit.
Okay. What tripped it up?
It's called IFEVIL,
Okay.
and it focuses on a model's ability to follow instructions.
Oh, interesting.
So this plays right into that weakness we talked about,
Yeah.
where 5.4 sometimes struggles to follow those precise formatting
Right.
or style guidelines.
Exactly. And the researchers think this highlights the importance of considering
Yeah.
like the specific tasks that you want a model to perform when you're designing the training data.
Right.
It's like if you want a model to be a master chef,
Yeah.
you wouldn't just feed it cookbooks.
Right.
You'd also give it like detailed recipes and make sure it can follow instructions.
Yeah.
Precisely.
That's a great way to think about it. So while 5.4 might not be the best recipe follower just yet,
Right.
its success in areas like reasoning and problem solving,
Yeah.
it really has people excited about the possibilities of this data-centric approach.
Yeah.
Imagine what they could achieve
Right.
if they keep refining these techniques and apply them to even larger models.
The possibilities are truly mind-boggling.
It's a fascinating time to be following the evolution of AI.
Totally.
Who knows what incredible breakthroughs are just around the corner.
Yeah. I, for one, can't wait to see what the future holds.
Now let's dive into those limitations
Okay.
and what they mean for the future of AI.
Sounds good.
So we've seen 5.4's strengths, but it's time to get real about its weaknesses.
Okay, right.
Because no AI is perfect.
Exactly, no. Yeah, and one of the big ones
Yeah?
that they discovered is what's called hallucination,
Okay.
where the model kind of generates incorrect
Uh-huh.
or even like completely made up information.
It's like the AI is telling a tall tale,
Right. Yeah.
but not on purpose.
Yeah, not intentionally.
Right.
Right.
And it can be a real problem, especially if you're relying on the model
Yeah,
for accurate information.
totally. Yeah.
Absolutely. The researchers are very upfront about this challenge
Yeah.
in the technical report.
Right.
They even give examples
Yeah.
of how 5.4 can sometimes invent
Mm-hmm.
entire biographies for people who don't even exist.
Yeah.
That's a little unsettling, to be honest.
Right.
I mean, what good is an AI if you
Oh.
can't trust what it tells you?
It's definitely a concern.
Right.
Yeah.
And while connecting these models to a search engine could help ground their responses in reality,
Yeah.
there's still that risk
Yeah.
of the AI kind of blending fact and fiction.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are the researchers doing to tackle
Right.
this hallucination problem? Have they just thrown in the towel?
Not at all. They've been working on some pretty clever strategies
Okay.
to try and curb this tendency,
Yeah.
especially during like that post-training phase.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, tell me more.
Tell me more about these hallucination busting strategies.
Okay, well, they realized that during pre-training,
Okay.
the main goal was just like pack as much knowledge
Yeah.
as possible into 5.4's digital brain.
Right.
It was all about quantity over quality.
Like force-feeding information
Exactly.
with no time to digest.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But then in post-training,
Yeah.
they kind of shifted gears.
Okay.
They started fine-tuning 5.4 to recognize when a question was simply too tough
Yeah.
for it to answer accurately.
Right.
And instead of making something up,
Yeah.
they wanted it to, well, admit it didn't know.
So instead of confidently blurting out a hallucination,
Yeah.
they're teaching 5.4 to say, I don't know.
You got it's all about setting those boundaries.
Right.
And to do this,
Yeah.
they used a technique called direct preference optimization,
Yeah.
or DPO.
Okay, reminder time. What was DPO again?
Think of it like training a dog.
Okay.
We reward 5.4 for saying, I don't know,
Yeah.
instead of making things up.
Okay.
So it learns what behavior is preferred.
Ah, positive reinforcement for AI.
Right.
That's a great way to explain it.
And to really make this work,
Yeah.
they got creative with their data. They
Yeah.
took real trivia questions,
Mhm.
and they actually used another language model,
Okay.
GPT-4,
Uh-huh.
to generate different responses.
So it's like a model, training a model.
It is.
This is getting meta.
It is. So GPT-4 would create like a correct answer,
Okay.
but also a plausible like refusal to answer response.
Something like, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure.
Right, exactly.
And then they fed all these different responses to 5.4.
Okay.
And by showing it that the refusal answers were actually preferred
Yeah.
in those tough situations,
Oh, yeah.
they kind of nudged it
Mm-hmm.
towards a more honest, less hallucinatory approach. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But doesn't this create a problem when it comes to evaluating
Yeah.
the model? Like
Yeah.
if it's answering fewer questions,
Yeah.
wouldn't its accuracy score go down?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They actually encountered this issue
Okay.
when testing 5.4 on a benchmark called Simple QA.
Okay.
It's full of these really obscure trivia questions
Yeah.
that even powerful models struggle to answer.
So even 5.4 was only getting a small percentage of these questions, right?
Rightly.
And when they started training it to refuse to answer more often,
Yeah.
its accuracy score on this benchmark actually went down.
Right.
even though it was behaving in a more responsible way.
Yeah, lower score, better behavior.
Right.
It's a good reminder that those benchmarks don't always tell the whole story.
It's a nuanced issue.
Yeah.
But even with these efforts to combat hallucination,
Mm-hmm.
the researchers are honest about the fact that it remains a significant challenge in AI.
Right.
They acknowledge that 5.4 still has room for improvement in this area.
Yeah,
Well, at least they're being transparent about it.
exactly.
What about other weaknesses? What else did they identify?
Another area where 5.4 struggled
Okay.
was in strictly following instructions.
Okay.
It's great at reasoning and problem solving,
Yeah.
but it can stumble
Okay.
when it needs to adhere to very specific instructions about formatting or style.
So it's like a brilliant student who sometimes forgets to follow
Yeah, exactly.
the assignment guidelines.
Yeah, and they believe this is partly due to the type of synthetic data
Okay.
that they used for training.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it focused on like Q&A and reasoning,
Yeah.
not so much on meticulously following instructions.
Interesting. So the type of training data really shapes
Yeah.
the model's strengths and weaknesses.
So,
It's like if you train on gourmet cooking techniques,
Right.
you might not be the best at following a simple recipe.
that's a great analogy.
Right.
And speaking of training data, remember how 5.4 excels at that chain of thought reasoning?
Yes. That was impressive.
Breaking problems down step by step?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out this can be a double-edged sword.
How so? I thought that was like its superpower.
It is a strength,
Okay.
but because its training data was packed with
Yeah.
chain of thought examples,
Right.
5.4 sometimes overdoes it.
Okay.
It might give a long, drawn-out explanation
Okay.
when a simple answer would suffice.
So it's like that friend who always tells a long, winding story,
Right.
but you just wanted a quick answer.
Yeah,
Exactly. And while it's not a deal breaker,
right.
it can sometimes make for a less than ideal user experience.
Yeah,
You know, people often just want the bottom line,
yeah.
not a step-by-step walkthrough.
Right, no one wants to feel like they're being lectured by their AI.
Right.
So 5.4's tendency for that chain of thought reasoning
Right.
can be both a blessing and a curse.
What other limitations did they find?
They also observed that while 5.4 can handle some back-and-forth conversation, it really shines in single-turn queries.
Oh, it's more like a question-answering machine.
Yeah, for now, that seems to be the case.
Right.
They're still working on
Right.
improving its conversational abilities.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about
Okay.
that custom benchmark they created.
Okay.
Fee-bench.
Referent, yeah.
You know, the one designed to address some of the shortcomings
Right.
of those standard benchmarks.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what makes it so special.
Well, they built FeeBench with like three main goals in mind.
Okay.
Originality, skill diversity,
Okay.
and rigorous scoring.
Okay, break those down for me, starting with originality.
Originality means that all the questions in FeeBench
Okay.
were written by the research team themselves.
Okay.
So they could be absolutely sure that these questions weren't already lurking
Yeah.
in the massive data sets used to train 5.4.
So it's a truly fresh test. No chance of the model just regurgitating something
Yeah.
it had already seen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very clever.
Yeah.
And it's a much better way to assess a model's ability to generalize,
Okay.
to apply its knowledge to new and unfamiliar problems.
Right. It's like the difference between memorizing a textbook and actually understanding the concepts.
Right.
Well enough to tackle like a brand new exam.
Perfect analogy.
Okay.
Now, skill diversity meant
Yeah.
pushing 5.4 beyond just answering simple questions.
So more than just multiple choice or fill the blank.
Way more. They wanted to see if it could handle
Okay.
a wide range of complex tasks
Okay.
to really stretch its abilities.
For example.
In coding, instead of just writing a simple function, 5.4 might be challenged to debug existing code,
Okay.
complete a partially written program,
Okay.
or like explain complex code in plain English.
Wow, those are some seriously high-level coding challenges.
Right.
It's like going from beginner coding exercises
Yeah.
to working on a real-world software project.
Yep.
And for math, they went beyond just solving equations.
Yeah.
They might ask 5.4 to identify errors in a proof,
Okay.
generate a new math problem based on certain criteria,
Okay.
or explain a mathematical concept in a way that someone without a math background
Right.
could understand.
So they're really trying to test
Yeah.
the depth of 5.4's understanding,
Right.
not just its ability to crunch numbers or spit out code.
That's the idea.
And finally, rigorous scoring.
Okay.
Tackled a big problem with a lot of current AI benchmarks.
Which is?
Often, the way these models' outputs are judged can be pretty subjective.
Okay.
One person might think a response is great,
Yeah.
while another might think it's just okay.
So there's a lot of room for personal opinion,
Yeah.
which isn't very scientific.
Right.
So for Fibench,
Yeah.
they created like incredibly detailed scoring instructions.
Like really specific rubrics.
Yeah.
It's like giving the judges a super clear guidebook.
Right.
So everyone is evaluating on the same criteria.
Precisely. These rubrics focused on things like accuracy, logical structure, and whether the model actually fulfilled all the requirements of the task.
Yeah.
It sounds like they went to extraordinary lengths to make sure Fibench was as objective
They do.
as possible.
They wanted it to be a true measure
Yeah.
of 5.4's capabilities,
Right.
not just a reflection of someone's personal preferences.
And this meticulous approach paid off.
Yeah, it did. How so?
By using Fibench throughout 5.4's development, they were able to make much more informed decisions about everything,
Yeah.
from the mix of data they used for training
Right.
to the specific techniques they employed for post-training.
So Feedbench was more than just like an evaluation tool. It was actually a guiding force
Right.
in shaping 5.4
Yeah.
into the impressive model it is today.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It was a key ingredient in their data-centric approach.
Right.
Now, remember how we talked about 5.4 outperforming much larger models on some of those standard benchmarks,
Yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing.
like beating out the Goliaths of the AI world?
Right.
Well, one of those benchmarks was called GPQA,
Okay.
which focuses on graduate-level STEM questions.
Graduate level. Wow, that's some serious brain power.
Graduate level. That's some serious brain power.
Yeah, it is.
And on this challenging benchmark,
Yeah.
5.4 actually outscored its own teacher model,
Oh,
GPT-4.
wow. The student surpassing the teacher.
Yeah,
That's got to be a good sign.
it is.
Yeah.
That's got to be a sign that they're doing something right.
Yeah.
And this was one of the key findings that really convinced the researchers
Yeah.
that their approach was onto something special.
Right.
It wasn't just about size.
Yeah.
It was about the way they were training the model,
Yeah.
the quality of the data they were feeding it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it wasn't just GPQA. 5.4 also excelled at coding tasks,
Okay.
scoring higher than any other publicly available model on benchmarks like Human Evil and Human Evil Plus.
Okay, this little model that could, it's a real underdog story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even with all these successes, there's one benchmark
Okay.
where 5.4 actually faltered a bit.
Okay, what tripped it up?
It's called IFEVIL,
Okay.
and it focuses on a model's ability to follow instructions.
Oh, interesting.
So this plays right into that weakness we talked about,
Yeah.
where 5.4 sometimes struggles to follow those precise formatting or style guidelines.
Exactly. And the researchers think this kind of highlights the importance of considering the specific tasks you want a model to perform when you're designing the training data.
Right. It's like if you want a model to be a master chef,
Right.
you wouldn't just feed it cookbooks.
Yeah.
You'd also give it detailed recipes and make sure it can follow instructions precisely.
That's a great way to think about it.
So while 5.4 might not be the best recipe follower just yet,
Right.
its success in areas like reasoning and problem solving
Yeah.
really has people excited about the possibilities of this data-centric approach. Imagine what they could achieve
Right.
if they keep refining these techniques and apply them to even larger models.
The possibilities are truly mind-boggling.
It's a fascinating time to be following the evolution of AI.
Totally.
Who knows what incredible breakthroughs are just around the corner?
I, for one, can't wait to see what the future holds.
Now it's time to wrap up this deep dive
Look.
and reflect on what 5.4's success means for the future of AI. So we've explored how 5.4 learns, we've looked at its strengths and weaknesses, and we've seen how it measures up against those AI giants.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey
It really has.
with this little engine that could.
But what does 5.4's success really tell us
Right.
about the future of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it seems like there's a shift happening,
Oh, no.
moving away from the bigger is always better mentality.
Yeah, for years, the trend in AI was all about building
Right.
these massive models,
Yeah.
billions and billions of parameters.
Yeah,
It was almost like an arms race.
it really
It
was.
seemed like every other week,
I-
there was a new headline, another model claiming to be
Yeah,
the biggest and most powerful.
right. Exactly.
And those large models definitely have their place.
Yeah.
They've made incredible contributions
Yeah,
to the field.
absolutely.
But 5.4's achievements show us
Yeah,
that there's another way,
right.
a more strategic approach.
You mean focusing on data quality over quantity?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this could be a game changer for a few reasons.
Okay.
For one, training those massive models requires just an enormous amount of computing power.
Right.
And that comes with both a hefty price tag and a significant environmental impact.
Totally. All those supercomputers churning away.
Right.
It takes a lot of energy.
Right. All that energy to keep them running.
To keep them running.
As those models grow larger and larger,
Right.
the energy demands become even more intense.
Yeah.
And 5.4 offers us this glimmer of hope,
Mm-hmm.
a possibility that we might be able to achieve comparable
Yeah.
or even superior results with smaller, more efficient models.
Yeah, especially if we focus on carefully crafting
Right.
the data they learn from.
It's like the shift from gas-guzzling cars
Right.
to electric vehicles,
Right.
finding a more sustainable way to achieve the same outcome.
That's a great analogy.
And it's not just about environmental benefits.
Yeah.
There are practical advantages too.
Such as?
Well, imagine a world where instead of relying on one massive
Yeah.
general purpose AI,
Mm-hmm.
you have access to a network of specialized AI agents.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Each of these agents would be an expert in a specific domain.
Right.
You might have one that's a whiz at writing, another one that excels at coding,
Okay.
a financial guru,
Yeah.
a medical diagnostician.
So instead of one general practitioner, you
Yeah.
have a whole team of specialists at your beck and call.
Precisely.
Okay.
And these specialized agents could work together seamlessly,
Right.
communicating and collaborating behind the scenes to help you achieve your goals.
Wow, that's a pretty compelling vision.
It's like having a personal team of AI experts
Yeah.
at your disposal, ready to assist with any task or challenge.
Right.
And because these models would be smaller and more focused,
Mm-hmm.
they could potentially run locally on your own devices.
Right.
No need to rely on the cloud.
Meaning faster response times and enhanced privacy.
Exactly. But even with all these potential benefits,
Yeah.
there are some important questions we need to consider.
Such as?
Well, ensuring these specialized AI agents remain aligned
Mm-hmm.
with human values and goals.
Yeah, that's a big one.
We've already seen how even the best models
Right.
can exhibit biases or generate harmful content.
Yeah.
And as we move towards a world of more specialized
Right.
and more autonomous AI,
Mm-hmm.
these issues become even more critical.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we need to proceed with caution, that
Yeah.
we have a responsibility
Right.
to guide the development of AI in a direction
Yeah.
that benefits all of humanity.
Absolutely. And I believe that this data-centric approach,
Yeah.
this emphasis on data quality that we've seen with 5.4,
Mm.
offers us a powerful tool
Right.
for creating more capable, more reliable,
Yeah.
and more beneficial AI systems.
It's a fascinating time to be following the evolution of AI.
It is. It really is.
Who knows what incredible breakthroughs are just around the corner.
I, for one, can't wait to see what the future holds.
I'm here.
So that wraps up our deep dive into the world of 5.4.
5-4. It's been a pleasure.
It really has. We've explored its innovative approach to learning, its remarkable capabilities, and its limitations. We've also contemplated the wider implications of its success and what it might mean for the future of AI.
Yeah, the future of AI.
We hope this deep dive has provided you with a deeper understanding of 5.4 and sparked your curiosity about this ever-evolving landscape of artificial intelligence.
I hope so.
If you'd like to learn more about the technical details of 5.4, we encourage you to check out the full technical report. We'll include a link in the show notes for those who want to dive even deeper. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll be back next week with another fascinating deep dive into the world of cutting-edge technology. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned.
I'll be here.